Hello there fellow witches, wizards and extended magical connections. Today we have a fun topic to go through and equally fascinating. We are going to be talking about Marvolo Gaunt, the grandfather of Tom Riddle. Since he was not a pivotal character in the franchise, there are not many illustrations of the man himself. Therefore, I will mostly be treating you to images of Hogwarts, other magical locations, and as many relevant depictions as I can muster. Despite his minimal appearance within the wizarding world, he is however a massive reason as to why Tom Riddle is the way that he is, became the infamous Dark Lord, and did all of those heinous deeds. We did as much research on official credited website sources, as well as reading through the original books to gather the information shared in today's video as we could. However, some information always goes amiss, or forgotten, or may just never have been explained in the first place. So please remember that this is sometimes the case. Without further talk, let's get into the life and times of Marvolo Gaunt, Tom Riddle's grandfather. Home and appearance. Chapter 10, The House of Gaunt from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, is where we get the most information about Marvolo Gaunt. Some of the information is shared by Dumbledore, but most of it comes from Bog Ogden's memories, revealed through the pensieve. In Harry's opinion, Marvolo looked very much like a powerful aged monkey. He was an elderly man, shorter than his son Morphin, and oddly proportioned. His shoulders were very broad, and his arms overlong. He had bright brown eyes, short scrubby hair, and a wrinkled face. His fingernails were yellow and dirty, and on his middle finger he wore an ugly black stoned ring. It's no surprise that his fingernails were so hideously unkept, since his house was in just as bad a state. It was hidden from the road and nearby town by overgrown trees that let no light through. Rafters were visible through the roof, nettles climbed up the windows, and even they were tiny and thick with grime. I'm honestly not sure how Ogden managed to see anything at all from within the house itself. It did apparently contain a filthy armchair, a grimy black stove, and a shelf of squalid-looking pots and pans. If a house can tell you anything of its inhabitants, this one said poverty and neglect, except for the snake nailed onto the front door. That says creepy and stay out, louder than a megaphone. I would not want to go in there. Heritage. Despite Marvolo's decrepit hovel, he hailed from an ancestry of wealth and power. Marvolo Gaunt was a descendant of the Peverils, the three brothers who cheated death, and also Salazar Slytherin. In fact, his ring, the ugly black ring mentioned earlier, was an heirloom that indicated his Peveril ancestry. It had a symbol on it that Marvolo called the Peveril coat of arms, which is generally known as the symbol for the Deathly Hallows. Although Marvolo Gaunt was not aware of it, the stone set into the ring was in fact the second Deathly Hallow, the Resurrection Stone. We don't know when or why the stone was set into the ring, perhaps simply for vanity, but we do know that Dumbledore separated them. Not, however, before he tried the ring on, tempted by the thought of seeing his parents and sister once more. All three members of the Gaunt family had the Parseltongue ability. Both Morphin and Marvolo spoke it in the presence of Bob Ogden, and from Merope's reactions, it was clear that she understood all that they said to each other and to her. This ability, like the ring, had also been passed down to Marvolo. From him it passed to his children, and then on to his grandson, Tom Marvolo Riddle, aka Voldemort. Voldemort himself, however, was not given the ring. He took it when he killed his Muggle father and framed his uncle Morphin for the murder. Marvolo was as proud of these heirlooms as he was of the lineage that they represented, which he claimed was pure blood all the way. Dumbledore himself confirmed that Marvolo, his son Morphin, and his daughter Merope were the last of the Gaunts, a very ancient wizarding family who had a habit of marrying their own cousins. Presumably, that was in order to keep what they believed was their superior blood status. Despite this belief, however, it did Marvolo and his few descendants no good at all. Dumbledore theorised that the inbreeding had amplified family traits of instability and violence. The family's own overinflated ego led to great financial losses, and the Gaunts were destitute before Marvolo himself was ever even born. Events. What we know. Marvolo lived in seclusion with his son Morfin and his daughter Merope. His son repeatedly used magic on unfortunate passing muggles, and he and his son were cruel and unkind to Merope. Bob Ogden, from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, arrived to summon his son to a hearing. Marvolo refused and considered the whole matter an outrage. Partway through the disagreement, the most recent muggle to have been assaulted rode past outside. Morfin told his father that Merope liked looking at the muggle and had been looking out for him last night, and that was why Morfin had attacked him. Marvolo, upon hearing this news, attacked Merope in a fit of rage, and Ogden defended her. Morfin went to attack Ogden, and Ogden fled. Dumbledore told Harry that after that Ogden returned with reinforcements from the Ministry, and both Morfin and Marvolo were sent to Azkaban, Marvolo for 6 months, and Morfin for several years. During that time, Merope ran away and gave birth to her half-blood son, Tom Riddle. Dumbledore said, Marvolo returned from Azkaban, expecting to find his daughter dutifully awaiting his return, with a hot meal ready on his table. Instead, he found a clear inch of dust, and her note of farewell explaining what she had done. He never mentioned her name or existence from that time forth. The shock of her desertion may have contributed to his early death, or perhaps he had simply never learnt to feed himself. Azkaban had greatly weakened Marvolo, and he did not live to see Morfin return to the cottage. Beliefs and attitudes. When I called the discussion between Ogden and Marvolo a disagreement, I was rather simplifying the matter. In fact, their disagreement was continually interrupted by Marvolo, where he would suddenly go off on a tangent to either attempt to bully Ogden or self-pronounce his and his family's importance, or otherwise he would be hurling insults at his daughter or ordering his son around. All in all, a rather unpleasant and disagreeable man, if I do say so myself. The first words he spoke to Ogden were to ask rhetorical and undermining questions. "Ministry, is it? Got you in the face, did he? Should have made your presence known, shouldn't you?" This attitude was not helped by his failure to help Ogden back to his feet, or to apologise for his son's actions, and certainly was not a good first impression. The way that he didn't frame complete sentences also suggests to me that he was somewhat lazy, disdainful, immature, or possibly all of these. Or he at least cared to be no better than this for the sake of others' company. It was apparent very quickly both Marvolo's opinion of Muggles, Muggle sympathisers and squibs. He outright demanded to know if Ogden was a pureblood, and called his daughter a filthy Muggle when she dropped a pot and went to pick it up by hand, as well as a useless sack of muck. He insisted that she used magic to repair it, and when Ogden did the spell for her, insulted Merope further. "Lucky the nice man from the Ministry's here, isn't it? Perhaps he'll take you off my hands. Perhaps he doesn't mind dirty squibs." Marvolo also didn't believe in following the law, and that those who did were scum who will come running when the Ministry tells them to. Having revved himself up into a tirade, he called Ogden a filthy little mudblood, began to flaunt his heirlooms and heritage, and finished off by proclaiming that his family have far more generations of pureblood wizards than Ogden, and spitting on the floor at his feet. Moreover, he felt that attacks on Muggles were harmless, as the Ministry would repair any damage and wipe the memories of the Muggles involved. I am sure that in this chapter and other sources there are many more details we could pull out about the character of Marvolo Gaunt. However, I'd like to move quickly on to his relationship with his surviving family members. You'll be aware by now that he had very little, if any, respect for his daughter. He verbally and physically abused her. She was quite understandably terrified of him. Meanwhile, he seemed to be considerably more proud of his son, claiming his son was defending himself from intruders and teaching Muggles lessons that they supposedly deserved. He still was not kind to his son, As far as I can tell, just about every time he spoke to his son directly was to order him around. Nevertheless, Morphin hankered after his father's approval. Morphin pronounced, "But I got him," referring to the muggle that Merope fancied, in order to impress Marvolo. Conclusion. Tom Riddle grew up with no money, no home, and no family because of his ancestors. Although he himself detested muggles, that would not have been the case if his grandfather had provided a different attitude for the family. If instead of isolating himself, Merope and Morvin, and hating the village, Marvolo had made good relations with the people, things could have been very different. Merope may have been able to build a genuine relationship with one of the townspeople. She would not have needed to run off, and Tom would have grown up knowing love and family and community. Although it may not have changed their financial situation greatly, it couldn't have hurt for him to have had a father with an income. There certainly wouldn't have been much reason for him to become a muggle hater himself and to be disgusted by muggleborns. Regardless of the environment he grew up in, Tom M. Riddle would still have had many, if not all, of his abilities and skills. His strong magical ability was a gift from the Peveril heritage. Dumbledore believed that the three brothers did not actually meet death, but forged the Deathly Hallows themselves. If so, that says that those Peverils were extremely powerful and talented wizards. It is no wonder that Tom Jr. in turn developed great power. Likewise, Salazar Slytherin was also considered to be a powerful wizard, as one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts. His, and Marvolo, Merope and Morphin's ability to speak Parseltongue was also awoken in Tom. Furthermore, as much as it would be nice to say that he could have not hated muggles, the odds were inherently against that. Salazar Slytherin had believed that wizards of pure blood were better and muggles were inferior, as did many, if not all, of his descendants, hence the inbreeding mentioned earlier. Speaking of inbreeding, Dumbledore believed that it had worsened family traits of instability and violence. It would seem that Voldemort's fits of rage and temperamental nature were also byproducts of his lineage. Ultimately, it seems no matter what choices Marvolo and his children had made, Voldemort would have very much always been the terrible yet powerful person he became. If you're looking forward to more fact files, you're in luck. We have plenty more planned for the future. Just make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell icon so you know when the next Wizarding World video is out. If you have any thoughts, please share them down below. We look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, thanks for watching and keep collecting.